Hey, welcome back to the lecture. So, in this lecture, let's understand the slave select pin management, that is NSS pin management. This we have to understand in two scenarios. The first scenario is when the device is in slave mode. So, when the device is in slave mode, the NSS works as a standard chip select input and lets the slave communicate with the master. So, this we have discussed. So, when in slave mode, the NSS pin will just work like a standard chip select input pin. And when the device is in master mode, NSS pin can be used either as output or input, remember. So, as an input pin, it can prevent multi-master bus collision. So that means when the device is in master mode, then you can use the NSS pin in input mode in order to achieve the multi-master capability. That means your SPI circuit can have multiple masters. This scenario let's not discuss, so because this will drag our discussion to something else. So the multi-master mode is actually not discussed in this course, or I may cover it later in this course. But as of now, I have not planned to produce contents on multi-master modes of the SPI peripheral. But remember that in standard communication, when the device is in master mode, you keep the NSS pin always as output. So when the NSS pin is in output mode, it can drive a slave select signal of a single slave. Alright, so now let's consider this scenario once again. This is actually the scenario of single master and single slave. And in this case, let's assume that the slave is STM32 microcontroller, which is in slave mode. And the master is another STM32 microcontroller, which is in master mode. So, strictly speaking, you need not to use this NSS line, right? Because there is only one master and one slave. But if you want to use that pin, then remember that in the slave, so you have to make this pin as input. So from the slave side, it just acts like a normal or standard chip select pin. From the master side, what you have to do is you have to make the NSS as output. So this is very important because if you make this as input, so then it is actually to detect the multi-master collision in when you use the microcontrollers in multi-master circuits. So let's not discuss about that scenario, but make sure that you make the NSS always output. All right, let's move forward. All right, so now let's discuss about the different types of slave management in the next lecture. So there are two types of slave management, and I'll see you in the next lecture.